Trevor Jacobs finally admits he's guilty of intentionally crashing his airplane. Today, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that Trevor Jacobs has arrived at a plea deal with them where he admits all of his wrongdoings in this case. Now, for those of us actually following this case, we all kind of knew that this day would come. But to have him actually admit it is a little bit of a surprise. Obviously, this means that him and his attorneys felt that they simply couldn't fight it. So they came to a plea deal on this one. Now, the one charge that he actually pleads guilty to is the destruction and concealment with the intent to obstruct a federal investigation. So that stems from him taking the airplane out and destroying it before the feds could actually come in and investigate it. But he does actually make a bunch of other admissions in this. Now, I'm going to read through this whole press release and go through it and all the details, but let's start with a little bit of a recap of what happened. So sometime in mid to late 2021, Trevor Jacobs purchased a old Taylorcraft aircraft. Now, it's been reported that the original owner has said that the airplane was in really rough shape and probably not airworthy. So having it suddenly show up in a plane crash was a little bit surprising to them. On November 24th, Jacob took this airplane up in the air and claims that he had an engine out. He had a parachute on, which was not the right kind of parachute that you'd be taking in an experimental aircraft. It's more of a skydiving rig, which is very uncomfortable to fly with. So he took this plane up and said he experienced engine problems. And of course, then he had to jump out because he didn't have a place to land. Now, we've all seen the video at this point. We've all seen what appears to be fire extinguishers attached to his legs. We've all seen that there was possibly places he could have landed. He probably could have turned around and at least gotten out of the mountains a little bit. We even see that he didn't even do any attempts to restart the engine at all, and it looks like part of his fuel system was actually even disconnected. So there was a whole lot of red flags that we all kind of brought up immediately. Some of those would have been circumstantial. I made a video about that before where a lot of the evidence was kind of circumstantial, but there was definitely some red flags there, and where there's smoke, there's often fire. And unfortunately in this case, there was no actual fire on the ground because this was incredibly reckless. Now, he hasn't actually appeared in court yet, but he's expected to be appearing sometime in the next couple weeks. In the plea agreement, he says that he had received a sponsorship from a company, obviously Ridge Wallets, and that he was going to make a video publishing and talking about the Ridge Wallet. Obviously, nobody believes that the Ridge Wallet was actually involved in this. Nobody believes Ridge Wallet was aware of this. So this was all done on his own. In fact, we even saw that ad disappear off the video very shortly after this incident. Now, there's been a lot of talk about him attaching a lot of cameras onto the airplane, but there's a lot of YouTubers that do that anyways. Trent Palmer, for instance, or they attach cameras on the airplanes all the time, so that's not really a smoking gun in and of itself. So about 35 minutes into the flight, it appears he has an engine failure, and then because he has nowhere to land, he just jumps out. And then he has to go and hike to the airplane, check it out, grab his cameras, and then he hikes out of there. Now, it wasn't until 2 days later, on November 26, 2021, that he actually reported the plane crash to the NTSB. Now, the NTSB started an investigation that same day, and they told him that he had to preserve the plane crash for use in the investigation. Trevor then agreed that he would preserve the plane crash and find the coordinates, as well as provide all the video to the NTSB for the investigation. 3 days later, the FAA then started their own investigation into the accident as well. Now, I'm going to keep saying in the plea agreement a lot because this is where he starts admitting stuff on paper that he did this. So in the coming weeks after the accident, he told investigators that he didn't know the location of the crash. In fact, not only did he know where the location was, but him and a buddy took a helicopter out there to retrieve the airplane. They brought it back to another airport nearby and started to chop it up and place the wreckage in dumpsters. This is after he was told by the NTSB not to touch the airplane. And this is fully admitted in his plea agreement. Now, he even admits that he did this intentionally to obstruct justice. Now, about a month later, on December 23rd, he uploaded his now infamous video about him crashing his plane. Trevor admitted that he intended to make money using this video, and that was the purpose of it. Now, he also admits to investigators that he lied when he said that the engine experienced a full power loss. 4 months later, in April 2022, they eventually did pull his license. So what's the ultimate outcome of this going to be? Well, Trevor could potentially see up to 20 years in jail for this charge. However, because it's a plea agreement, there's almost no chance he's going to serve all of that. Plea agreements are usually there to reduce the sentences if he just admits it and saves the government a lot of time and money in pursuing it. Now, we don't have any idea what the actual terms of the agreement are, whether it's going to be jail time, fines, or community service, or some combination of them. But for such an egregious act where he's intentionally destroying evidence, I would have a hard time believing that they're going to be particularly light on him. I'd be surprised if he doesn't spend time in jail. If he ever gets his pilot's license back, I'll also be rather surprised. Now, I'm going to post the press release below in the description, but I'm really curious to what all you guys have to say. Do you think he's going to spend the next 20 years in jail, maybe the next 10 years? Do you think it's just going to be a light slap on the wrist? Do you hope that he gets the full brunt of the law, or do you think that maybe he's learned his lesson? Me personally, I'm kind of hoping for a tougher sentence, especially because he did this intentionally and knew all along that he shouldn't do any of this. This wasn't just accidentally falling into this. There was intention behind this. And because I'm told by my other YouTube creator friends that I need to ask you guys to subscribe, there's a button down there, and I hope to see you guys next time.